going to close off all the other stuff first, just so that get back to, I can show you guys exactly how to get to the YouTube stuff and whatnot. Okay. And here's the syllabus. Course information, just copied and pasted from your college catalog, so nothing new here. Learning objective. This is new because you cannot see the learning objective of classes from the catalog. This is basically a list of things that you should be able to do after completing this class. I'm not going to go through these items one by one because that's what you're supposed to learn throughout this semester from this class. Number of units, it is a 3-unit class. 1 unit is for the lab. It has 54 lecture hours and 54 lab hours. Technically speaking, the schedule is scheduling this meeting time to be the lab time, but I'm going to use it for lecture purposes. Because I think it is, well, for me at least, I would like to spend the face-to-face time for lecturing, and then when you do your homework, you can kind of do it at home and use different types of method to interact with me and say, well, I'm doing this part here, but the program is not working. Can you give me a pointer? Okay, there are ways to do that without being face-to-face. But the lecture part, I would prefer to do that part face-to-face. Okay. Next up is where to find me. My name is Tak Awyum. My office is number 7 in Liberal Arts 133, which is one aisle over on that side. Office hours are basically just 8 to 9 o'clock every day in the morning, except for Friday. For Friday, I have online office hour from 8 to 9, 8:30 to 9:30. I'm thinking about making it face-to-face too, so I'll actually be here on Friday as well. Phone number of the office is 484-8250, and if you want to contact me for class-related stuff, you want to contact me through the Gmail account because I'm separating my student email from all of the other email that I'm getting for my office. So are there any questions about stuff on the screen? No questions? All right, moving on. The meeting time of this class, there are 2 meeting times here. One is for the early lab, which is this one, and the other one is for the later lab. Now, for the most part, the 2 sections are somewhat interchangeable. For whatever reason, if you cannot make it to this particular time, you can try to make it to the second time. Okay, that's okay with me as long as it is not a habit. Okay, just once or twice, there's something you have to take care of. You cannot make it to the earlier time. You can make it to the later time. That's okay with me. But the final exam time is not interchangeable. For this particular section, the earlier time, our final exam time is December 17th from 10:15 to 12:15. So you might want to mark it on your calendar just to make sure that you have that slot of time available for the final exam. The exam will be face-to-face. We'll be here to take the final exam. All right, so we have some class policies here. For this class, prerequisites does apply because we have a prerequisite of CISP 300, 370, or CISP 320, which is COBOL for this class. I have already checked the prerequisite for most people in this class. If you have taken CISP 300 somewhere within the district, I would have checked it already and say, oh, yes, I can see that. Okay, that part I can do automatically. If you have successfully taken one of the other classes where CISP 300 is a prerequisite, I would have checked that as well. Okay, in other words, if you transfer from another college district and you challenge the prerequisite of CISP 300 and you're taking some other classes, I would have checked it off already. For people whose prerequisite that I cannot verify, you would have gotten an email like a week ago or so, and so you have to file what we call a prerequisite challenge form with the division office, which is 133, room 133 on that side. Okay. So what you need to do is to file a prerequisite challenge form where you have to show me, not me, but you have to show the faculty who's going to read that form that you have met the requirements for the prerequisite. Okay. How many people need to file a prerequisite challenge form in this class? Okay. Do you know how to do it? Okay. All right. So you just have to try to do it as soon as possible. Okay. We have 1 week or so to get that all kind of cleared out. And what we'll do is, I will only allow a 1 week window from the first class meeting to get all the approved prerequisite challenge form or equivalent verification from counseling. If you transfer from a UC or a CSU, counseling would have, given you a list of equivalencies, and that will work as well for establishing you have the prerequisite for this class. Are there any questions about this slide? Questions? Okay. Students who do not meet the prerequisite requirements after the first week will be dropped. Okay, so you have to get it done within the first week. If you don't get the approval back, soon enough, what you can do is to at least, send me a copy of the form itself before you filed it. Okay, so that way I know, okay, you got it sent already. It's just that, they have not been able to process it, quickly enough. We don't have any co-requisites, so we can skip this one. Acceptable excuses for attendance purposes would be like, just basically sickness of the student himself or herself with a doctor's note, for verification, or any type of summon from, government-related activities. So it can be jury duty, can be military duty, can be, other things where the government is asking you to be present somewhere else. Okay. I think last semester we had a few cases of naturalization. Well, that's fine too, not a problem. Okay. Yep.
If we miss the morning class and come to the afternoon class, we still mark as absent?
No. Yeah. But if you're signed up for this class, that's kind of like, yeah, you can do it a few times, but try not to do it consistently. Yep.
You're really gonna need the doctor's note?
Yes. Now, the doctor's note is only one way to do the verification. The nurse or the health center on campus, they can also, sign the notes too. All right, so attendance, this is actually not from me, this is from the college catalog itself, is excessive absence. Okay, what is excessive absence? Excessive absence is when a student has more than 6% of absences compared to the total hours of class time. Okay. Now this class has 54 lecture hours. Okay. So we want to look at what is 6% of 54. It turned out to be like 3 hours and 15 minutes or something like that. Okay. And then each session that we meet is 80 minutes. So that means the third absence is going to be counted as excessive for this class. Is that okay? All right. Yeah, no, next door. I have no idea what they do next door. I've been using this classroom for many classes, and it doesn't matter if it's in the morning, in the afternoon, or in the evening. It's always a party going on next door. Okay, this part is redundant because I covered this part already. If a student is absent because of illness verified by the health center or personal physician, the absence must be excused and the student allowed to make up work missed. This is from the college catalog as well. Okay. How soon to report an excuse, especially when it is supposed to be excusable. In the case of a government summon, you can send me a copy of the summon. You can block off certain things that you don't want me to know, like your address and stuff like that, and just kind of show your name and the reason why you're getting summoned, or which branch of the government is summoning you. I don't need to know the reason. I just need to know, which branch of the government, and that's good. Okay, that's good for verification. If you are sick, then obviously you cannot schedule it, right? There's no such thing as scheduled sickness. I think I'm gonna sick on Wednesday. Let me let Tech know that I'll be sick on Wednesday. And here's the pre-approved form from my personal physician that I will be sick on Wednesday. I don't think that works, right? So in the case of a sickness, you want to do it as soon as possible. Let me know that you are missing the class because you are sick. Now, sometimes you may be so sick that you cannot even get out of bed. I understand it. Sometimes, I get those sicknesses too. So in that case, you can either ask someone else to, either call me or email me and let me know that you are sick, or you can do it, when you're well enough, but do it as soon as, possible. Okay. The question is, what about the other, reasons that you may not be able to make it to class? What if you have a child and, child is sick? What if your car is broken down, and so on and so forth? Well, that's what that 6% is for. Okay, so that 6% is basically for stuff that you cannot anticipate ahead of time, things that you have no control over, and so they are, so you can basically miss, up to 2 classes for whatever reason. My alarm clock didn't work this morning. That's good. That's okay. You don't have to tell me why, because it is not going to be excused. Okay. And ultimately, each student is responsible to arrange the necessary resources to take a class with sufficient attendance and other resources, like having access to the internet for a hybrid class and a computer to work on homework assignments. And since this is a class that is face-to-face or hybrid, I usually have a roll sheet, but today I forgot to print one out. So what I will do instead is your sign in to Moodle. Okay, so if you're sitting here because you don't have access to Moodle right away, sign in to Moodle sometime today, and I will still count it as being present in class. Is that okay? Okay, especially those of you sitting on a blue chair, you have to remember, as soon as possible, sometime today, go sign in to Moodle and use that password to get into this class. When I look at the sign in or activity list of this class, I will use it for roll purposes for today. Okay. Moving on, classroom stuff. Okay. Basically, this classroom or this lab is for teaching, and is for teaching this particular class, cisp360. It doesn't mean that you cannot do your calculus homework or study for your, chemistry test, sometime today. If you're gonna do that, don't do it in a distracting way. Okay, don't ask the next student. Okay, how do I solve this, calculus equation? Okay, you can do it on your own. Just, don't distract other people. That's okay. Obviously, practicing for archery is a whole different kind of thing. Because sometimes people think, but you said it's okay to do the homework for some other class in this classroom. How about archery? How about
It wouldn't be a big deal if they were really good, but if they sucked.
If they're really good, they may not need to take that class, right? Okay, so I'm not really too strict within the classroom. For the most part, the one thing that bugs me the most is chatting. Okay, now the reason why it bugs me is because sometimes I'll be talking about something, and there'll be some student kind of talking, and then the students behind those chatting students cannot listen to me. Okay, that really kind of bugs me. So I just really want to keep chatting to a minimum in this class. Okay, I know sometimes you have a question that is class related. Okay, you might have missed what I just said about 2 minutes ago or something like that, and you want to ask your next door neighbor and say, well, what did Tech just talk about? Blah 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 blah. Okay, did he say exclamation point or did he say some other symbol? Okay, I can understand it. Don't ask the other student, ask me instead. Just raise your hand and say, I didn't quite get what you said a little bit earlier. No problem, I'll just kind of talk about it. Okay? If it's not class related, you can kind of wait until the class is over, and then you can talk to the other student outside of this classroom. Okay? Pets has only happened once. Okay, there's only one time that I had a student who brought in a dog that is not a helper dog, and it was distracting, really, really distracting in the class. But that's why I put this item here. Cell phone ringing, can be annoying, can be distracting. So I kind of ask everyone to kind of silence your phone. It doesn't mean that you have to turn it off. You can leave it on, but in vibrate or silence mode. Okay. If you need to text, if someone is texting you, you can text back. Doesn't bother me. Okay. If you have to carry on a conversation, if you really need to talk to someone, you can walk outside and talk and come back in. Just don't do it too often. Okay. Just don't make it don't do it to make it a habit and make it distracting to other students. So if you can make it not very distracting, it's okay once or twice. Okay. Eating and drinking for this classroom is not allowed because you do have computers in front of you, except for those of you who currently do not have computers in front of you. And non-compliant students will be asked to leave the classroom, if people do not want to do that, I'm going to have to ask security to come in. Have never had to do that before. Okay, that's always the first time, sometimes. So are there any questions about this slide here? Common sense stuff for classrooms. I do want to kind of bring up this part here. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask. Me. Okay, if it's related to the class, just go ahead and raise your hand. It's not an issue. I like questions, and some of you know how much I like questions because I answer questions with more questions. Yes. You will see that here too. Part of the syllabus actually has that part. Conduct code is a big deal. You can refer to the section Standards of Student Conduct of the college catalog. This is a link to it. Academic dishonesty is also, I will check for that in all of my classes. It's basically an act of deception in which a student claims credit for work or effort of another person or blah, 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 blah. But the bottom line is here. The bottom line is really this sentence. It occurs when students attempt to show possession of a level of competency, knowledge, or skill that they do not possess. And typically when that demonstrated ability is higher than the actual ability. When it's lower, it's okay. It doesn't count as dishonesty. Nobody's getting that point. But does everybody understand this particular sentence? Okay. And dishonesty, academic dishonesties will be reported to administration, maybe depending on the case, and any accumulation of these cases can lead to expulsion from the college. All students involved in the act of dishonesty will not receive points for the work submitted, and this actually includes the person or the people who originate the material, but willingly, actively, or otherwise knowingly involved in the attempt. Okay, I have one example later on that kind of shows you what I mean by that. Activities involving dishonesty do not count for attendance. Like if it's a test, it means I'm not going to use it to say that this person was here for the test. I may ask people to do some additional work or explain what they have turned in, if I find anything suspicious. Some of you may think, but you're just paranoid. No, I'm not. Okay, I got 2 prior cases where this actually became necessary. There was one time I was teaching Pascal. Does anyone remember Pascal? Not the person Pascal, but the language. Okay, so there was one person who took that Pascal class, and from the questions he asked me in the lab, it did not seem this person really had a good handle on programming concepts. Okay. Because one time he was asking me about the program that he turned in. He was asking me to explain a part of a program that he turned in. I was thinking, that doesn't sound very natural. at the end of the semester, but throughout the entire semester, I was trying my best to match his submission, his programs, with everybody else in the class, and I could not make a match. And the reason why there was no match was because his programs were written so perfectly that no one else in the class was able to get to that level of programming. Yeah. So there was no match, and I do not reuse homework assignments. I always have new homework assignments for every semester. So there's no way he could be copying from someone else from a prior semester. So I was completely baffled. Okay. At the end of the semester, he turned in another program, otherwise perfectly done. It was just missing a semicolon somewhere and a period somewhere. Minor syntax error. And this is a 300-line program. So how do you write a 300-line program and have simple syntax errors? I don't know, so I asked him. And I just said, well, this program is not compiling. I cannot give you a grade unless this program runs. Then I can give you a grade based on how well it runs. And he did not have a clue how to fix it. It's only at that time that he told me that he had help from someone from Sac State. So that's why, I have this item here, because, sometimes I can see that it doesn't match what I think this person is capable of doing, but I cannot find any other reason. So I might ask someone to show me, well, what do you think about this program? I can take like one semicolon off and have that, student to attempt to fix it, something like that. In this class, all homework assignments are supposed to be done independently. So that means without the aid of someone else during or prior to the activity. And also originally, which means without copying from or significantly deriving from the work of others. Okay? So that makes working on homework assignments together kind of a challenge. So I'll kind of give you an example of how you can help out another student in this class. Sometimes I can retroactively re-examine work that is already submitted and graded to check for stuff. Okay? That has happened in the past as well. For this class, this really applies. The question is, what happens when the submissions of more than one student are identical or nearly identical? It depends on the homework assignment. For something that's really simple, maybe there are only like 2 or 3 ways of doing it. And this is a class of 40 plus students. I mean, you guys are bound to turn in something that is either similar or completely identical. Okay? But for more complex homework assignments, it is very unlikely that 2 people would turn in exactly the same thing. Okay? So I'm going to use that, also to gauge, is it really likely or is it not likely? What happens when the answers of several questions are identical or nearly identical in an exam? In this case, for this class, the exam questions are kind of more open-ended. It's not multiple choice. So it is, once again, it is kind of unlikely that 2 people would turn in exactly the same thing, but it's up to each individual question. Some questions may be simple enough that half the class would turn in the same thing. And let's move on to grading. Okay, everybody's favorite subject here. A, B, C, D, F, what percentage maps to which letter grade? This is how it's done. Some people know it already because you have taken classes from me already, and some people will look at this and go like, wow, that's different from all of my other classes. And yes, it is different from all of your other classes. But for people who have taken my classes before, do you think you get a grade that is, fitting?
Yes.
Match your ability? Okay, well that's a good sign. So an A is 87.5% or more is an A. A B is 62.5% to 87.5%, and so on. So to pass this class with a letter grade of C or better is 37.5%. Okay, if someone has at least 37.5%, that's at least a C, and that is more than enough. Well, that is just enough in terms of technicality to move on to the next class. But I would not feel comfortable getting a C out of this class to move on to the next class. Okay. Moving on, components of this class. 20% will come from all of the homework assignments, okay, and we'll have some throughout the semester. The way I look at homework assignment is it is more or less things for you to do to reinforce your understanding of the subject matter. Okay, it doesn't count for a whole lot percentage of your final grade because, well, first of all, you can spend as much time as you want given the deadline on your homework assignments, and two, for the most part, it's really just to kind of get you into programming, but it's not really the best way to assess your ability, or your understanding of the material. The final exam is 40% of your final grade, so it is a big chunk, but I don't think this is the biggest chunk of final exam in other courses. Do you guys have classes where the final exam counts for more than 40%? Yes? No?
Yeah.
Yeah? How many percent?
In the MMLC, it's 60%.
60%. Wow. And how many percent do you need to get an A out of that class?
90.
Okay, well that means the final exam is very important.
Very heavy.
Yeah, for this class, people can get up to 60% out of 100 before the final exam, and 60% is already a C. Yeah, well, it's a C plus, but we don't have the plus, here at AR, so it's a C already. And anyone who feels comfortable and say that since I have a C already before the final exam, I'm gonna skip the final exam, can feel free to do so. I have had one or two people doing that, but why do that when you can just take the final and potentially bump your grade up another level or two? This also means anyone who has flunked out everything can take the final exam, aced it, and get a C out of this class. The percentages works out too. I have not seen that happen. This is not an open challenge. Please do not take me wrong. This is not an open challenge and say, really? I'll be the first one to do it. I'll intentionally miss everything until I get to the final, and I'll just ace it and get out of this class with a C. Okay, there will be two exams, two midterms. Exam 1 is going to be about 1/3 through the class. Exam 2 is going to be about 2/3 through the class. Okay, and each one is going to be 20% of your final grade. Grading FAQ, your score is going to be assigned based on what I can observe from the assessment activities, like your homework assignments, the tests, and so on. Okay, because I have had people in the past, who come to me and say, "But Tag, I think I deserve a better grade because I spend a lot of time studying for the test." Well, I have no doubt that that person spend a lot of time studying for the test, but according to the answers to the test, that person is not getting the grade that that person wants to get. So what I'm going to do is to assign the score based on what I can observe, not based on how much effort someone has put into this class. I mean, some people in this class, I have no doubt that there will be like a few people in this class who only have to spend 30 minutes to prepare for the final exam and ace it. Okay, some people have taken a class like this before, or they have done extensive programming already, and they don't have to study too hard. And some people may have to spend hours just to get ready for a test. Okay, so it depends a lot on your background, where you come from, and so on. But I cannot use effort for grading purposes. I can only use what I can observe from assessment for grading purposes. I won't have multiple choice questions, so that this point is irrelevant for this class. What I'll do for grading purposes, especially for exam questions, is it's going to be rubric based. Okay, so I'm going to have a rubric of what do I observe, and you can see exactly what the rubric is too. So that way you can see, okay, I got this many points out of this question because of that. Okay. So I'm trying to make it very transparent, how you get your score, how I break it down, and so on. Studying tips. This is a good one, okay? I expanded this one quite a bit compared to last semester. So instead of reading this part here, which is really boring, I'm going to read the conversation here, which is down here. Okay, so we have two students, student A, who is kind of stuck with the program, and student B, who seems to be doing pretty well in class. Okay, so here's student A, saying, my program isn't working, I'm stuck. Can I take a look at yours? Okay, this is in the context of a programming assignment. Okay, and student B is being courteous. Instead of saying, no, go away, student B is saying, well, maybe I can help you. Okay, let's see if I can help you. And trust me, in the programming class, sometimes helping out a fellow student can help you understand the material better. Okay, but that depends on who the other student is. Some people are, they just want the straight answer so they can turn it in and get a grade. Some people actually want to learn about the material. Okay, so it depends on what the other person is doing. But let's just say that you really want to help out the other student, and not to, so you can say, well, I'm afraid I cannot show you my exact answer. And why do you think you don't want to show the exact answer?
Cheating.
Right. Well, it's not exactly cheating, but it makes your submission and the other person's submission not independent anymore. And then for grading purposes, you're going to get a 0. So you don't want to do that. Yep.
Pretty much you don't trust the other guy.
Sorry?
Pretty much you don't trust the other person.
Well, that and also, but yes, because if the other person gets the exact answer, it is unlikely that person will actually say, okay, I can see how you're doing it, so let me try to do it myself, and completely independently. It's unlikely. It's almost impossible, right? Because it's you cannot read somebody else's code that is actually working and completely forget about it and then re-derive your own solution from scratch. It is just not possible. Okay, don't think of a pink elephant. What are you thinking now?
Pink elephant.
Yep, exactly. So student B would basically say, well, however, I'd be glad to answer questions regarding the concepts involved in the assignment. So if the homework assignment is about pointers, okay, then you can say, well, I can see that you might have some questions about pointers. I can explain those concepts, not a problem, okay? Student A is not giving up, is he or her? Can I show you my program so you can fix it? You have no idea how many times I get that question, right? Here's my program. It's not working. Can you fix it? Well, student B is obviously more tactful than I am, and say, I'd rather not take a look at your program. Can you describe the issue without showing me the code? Okay. Do you think student B is intentionally making things difficult for student A?
Yes.
Yes, but for what purpose?
Learn.
For learning, exactly. Student B wants student A to go through the thought process of debugging a program. But why do I want to learn about debugging? I just want to pass this class.
If you pass a class, you won't get anywhere if you don't know how to.
Exactly, because there's a reason why people are taking this class, right? Is to get the skill set that is related to programming, and debugging is a very important skill set. So student A is trying to help student A, but student B is trying to help student A by making things a little bit more difficult. So student A obviously understands that part. Say, but that's difficult. Where do I start? The program just doesn't work. See, if I were student B, I would just walk away at that point. But student B is a much better person than I am. So instead, student B says, what do you expect the program to do, and what does it actually do? In other words, student B is asking student A to differentiate. What do you think this program should do, and how is it doing something differently? Tell me what the difference is. that is debugging. You're trying to look at the symptom of a program that is not working and describe it. It is a very important step of debugging a program. Can you describe the difference? So student A says this loop is supposed to exit after going 4 times, but it's not exiting at all. It's an infinite loop. Okay. And then student B asks, what is the condition of the loop? Now this part obviously is a little bit kind of technical. It's a concept that we will talk about in this class, but I'm just going to use it as an example. So student A says it's x equals 4, and student B knows the problem right away. But student B is not telling student A, oh, fix it this way. This is the problem. No. Student B is asking, what is the meaning of a single equal symbol in C++? Instead of giving student A the exact answer and how to fix it, student B is prompting student A to think in that direction. Student A says, compare for equality. Otherwise, why would I have written x equals 4 as a condition of this loop? Student B says, I don't think so. That doesn't seem right. And then student B asks, so what does it mean? What does a single equality symbol mean in C++, basically? So student B is explaining it. Well, not explaining it, but student B is asking student A to go back and review the notes and or review or watch my video again. Okay, this is also when some people, like some student A, would just kind of walk away and go like, you're not helping me, I'm walking away. Okay, but instead this student A is more persistent and say, come on, just tell me, I don't have time to review my notes. I mean, what would you do when someone is asking for your help and say, I don't have time to study, I don't have time to review my notes, I don't have time to review the video recording of this class? Well, you can keep your answer, okay? I'm not a patient person, so I would just ask that person and go, well, I cannot help you any further because until you do what you need to do, I cannot help. But student B is a better person and be very encouraging. It won't take long, it's going to be helpful to you in order to review the notes. Student A will review, grumpily do something, review the notes, watch the video again, whatever. Oh, I see, a single equal symbol is an assignment operator, it's not comparing for equality. Student B confirms that. It's okay to confirm, okay? Right, so what is a equality comparison symbol? Oh, I get it. A double equal symbol instead of single means checking for equality. That's right. Do you know how to fix the program now? Yes, blah, 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 blah. Student B, thanks. And student B looking at his or her watch, don't mention it. And it just... Okay, but why do you think I spent so much time to make up this little dialogue here? It's because last semester there were a few people in one of my classes turning in exactly the same code for one particular homework assignment. And I know these students, they're not cheating students, okay? They're really kind of good students, trying their best. But the problem is they did not work on the program independently. So the program ends up to be exactly the same code when it is unlikely to be identical. Okay? This is what you guys can do so that it is not the same. Does it take more work? Absolutely. Okay? But at the same time, I think student A ends up, understanding more about C++ programming than when student B just kind of says, okay, just add one more equal symbol here. That's it. That will only take student B like 5 seconds, right? Instead of going through this process. But student A would not benefit at all because student A would not understand the concept after this whole thing. All right. Moving on, student study habits. Attending classes, well, that part we got already because of the excessive absence policy. Pay attention in class is kind of important. I know sometimes I can be droning and be kind of boring, but try your best to kind of pay attention to the subject matter. Bring something to take notes. Okay, I've seen a lot of people just coming to a class with nothing, absolutely nothing. I understand technology has advanced to the point where pencil and paper may not be the best way to take notes. Some people like to do it on a tablet and some other devices. Some of you have computers right in front of you. You can start up a Google document, right? And just kind of type up something. But what are you going to type? If I'm showing you a program in class, okay, I'm just giving you a sample program, going through the process of debugging the program, what kind of notes are you going to take? Knowing that I'm recording the class already. Well, there are two things you can do. Go ahead. Timestamp. Exactly. The first thing is a timestamp, especially on something that you do not know already, something that you think, hey, I might want to go back and revisit this particular topic. Just write down a little timestamp, okay? At 11:20, Tech is starting to talk about GDB commands. Okay, just jot down a little note like that. The reason why you want to do that is because in the recording, you don't want to have to watch it from start to finish just to locate the 3 minutes that you need for GDB commands. Okay, if you kind of jot down the timestamps, you can just kind of fast forward to the point that you want, maybe a few minutes early, and then just you can save a lot of time that way. Okay. The other thing that you might want to write down would be insights that you are having in your mind. Not something that I'm saying, not something that I'm doing, but something that's going through in your mind and you just made the connection, okay? So maybe I was talking about, I don't know, I'm talking about the conditions of a loop, okay? But in that discussion, suddenly you made a connection to some other concepts. Well, write that down because that's something that you cannot retrieve from the video recording because it is something that's happening in your mind. It's not something that I'm doing. Okay, so I would suggest taking notes for all of those things. Basically things that you cannot get out of the video recording. You want to kind of write it down. Reading what I will be covering before a lecture will help you prepare for the lecture itself. Okay, because at least you know what I'll be talking about. You may not understand every single thing about it, but at least you know what I'll be talking about and how it is loosely connected to all the other things that we talk about in this class. Study again after a lecture is kind of important because the earlier you do that, the better, because your mind can only retain knowledge for so long. Okay, if you revisit something right away, it helps to reinforce your understanding of those concepts. When you have homework assignments, start on the homework assignments as soon as possible. Gives you more time to ask questions in case you run up to a problem. Okay, it gives you more time to think through the program. If you run into problems, it gives you more time to solve the problems yourself. Okay. And after an assignment is due, I always give you a solution. Okay. On the day that an assignment is due, I give you my solution. So what you want to do is to study my solution, compare my solution to yours. It is possible that you have a better solution than mine. It's entirely possible. But if they are different, think about how they're different and understand both ways of writing the same kind of program. It's going to be helpful. And last, I use a lot of examples that are not in the notes, okay? I try my best to write my notes to include some examples, but in the class when I try to explain the concept and someone asks me, okay, but I'm not really understanding this particular concept, a lot of times I would just come up with a sample code in class that is not in the notes to explain that concept, okay? So those are important as well. All right, are there any questions about studying tips and stuff like that? Okay, and here is the tentative schedule for this class. I got the date wrong. It's supposed to start on the 25th. But basically, these are the dates of the concepts that we should be covering. It's really just more or less a checklist more than anything else. So the dates probably will be off, by, I don't know, a few days. But these are the topics that we do have to go over in this class. So are there any questions about the syllabus? This is the last part of the syllabus. No questions? All right, so let's go back to Moodle. Yep.
We're on the waiting list. We can't log into the Google class.
You can with that password.
What's that?
With that password, you should be able to.
Oh, okay.
Now, that's what that password is for people who are not currently enrolled. They can use that password to sign in to Moodle, and I use that sign in, kind of as a road taking for today. Right. Okay, so there is a quote-unquote homework assignment for prerequisites. It's not something that you have to do, but if you have not met the requirements for this class, if you check your grade, if you check your grade book, it will indicate that you'll get a 0 score for this particular quote-unquote homework assignment. Okay, so if you have not met the prerequisite for this particular class, and you're filing a prerequisite challenge form, get it done in a week. Okay, I would file the form today so that you can get a confirmation back within a week. Are there any questions about that step? How many people took cisp360 from Sac City? Okay, so you need to.
It's the same person.
It's okay. It's not a problem, but you still need to kind of go through the process. Yep. They will approve it. It's just that you have to kind of file the paperwork. Busy work. I don't understand why they use 301 over there. It just makes.
Is basically the same. It's the same process.
Yeah, but they use an actual programming language in 301.
Yeah.
All right, so syllabus is all done, but I can't do a single thing until I get through the syllabus acknowledgement. So what I'll do is I will go through this really quickly. You should not go through it this quickly, okay? What it is an acknowledgement of the concepts in the syllabus. So I'm going to go through this real quick. And just from the answers, you kind of know what it's for. Select one. I do not have access to the syllabus. I have access to or a copy of the syllabus. This is a good one too. Princeton University has a really well-written policy on academic integrity. It's a good one to read also because it kind of explains the thing that I was explaining before. What is counted as original, what is counted as independent, how much help can a student receive from another student and still be okay, and how much is not okay. It's a good document. I would strongly recommend everybody to take a look at that document. Okay, but I'm just going to go through this real quick here. I acknowledge the importance and meaning of academic integrity, honesty. I do not understand or acknowledge the importance. I mean, it's kind of clear which one is supposed to be the right answer. Because until I get this done, I cannot move on. The other topics will not open up. Okay, one more. 7 questions. What is it doing? Oh, it is doing it. It's just kind of slow. There we go. One more.
Wait, wrong one.
Okay, that's fine. I'm going to show you what happens when you get a wrong one. If you get a wrong one and you know that you got one wrong, you can return to the attempt. And once you think you got everything done, then you can submit all and finish. Now, what if you got something wrong and you hit submit all and finish? Well, you can start another attempt. There's no limitation of how many times you can attempt this. There are only 7 questions, so that means there are 2 to the power of 7, which is 128 possible combinations of choices, and one of those will get you 100%. Sorry?
So if you do all of them, you'll get 100%.
Yes, except the choices still is randomized, so you cannot just remember A or B each time. You actually have to read the text of each choice of the multiple choice. Okay, so now that I got this done, okay, let's go back to the main page of this course and see what happens over there. It's kind of slow. All right, so now you can actually see, getting started now has, these topics opened up. So once you get to a topic, just click it, like getting started, click it. And once you click it, it will get you to the items within that topic. They're all hyperlinks here. Are there any questions about how to get through the syllabus acknowledgement so they can have you have access to the actual content on Moodle? No questions about that part? It's all good? Okay. All right. So we'll go over these topics one by one. First question. How am I going to do homework in this class? C++ programming can be done in a variety of environments using a variety of tools. So you can basically do anything as long as you can turn in your homework assignment in a way that I can grade it. Okay? But there is a way that I'm recommending. So there are ways that I think is a better way to do it. Oh, I forgot one more thing. I forgot. Oh, okay. It's on this screen here. Okay, this is something that you have to do too. It's called programming environment. Okay, it's not a quiz. It's not really a homework. There's nothing to turn in. It's more like a survey, a questionnaire. Okay, it asks you questions like, are you using Linux already? Okay, or if you use Windows, it will ask you, do you really need to use a GUI and a IDE, or would you like to try out Linux with command line? So it asks you questions like that, and it will give you recommendations of how to do your homework or what environment you can set up to do your homework assignments. Okay, the way I prefer to do it is to use Linux and use the command line interface to do it. Okay, instead of using an IDE, which stands for Integrated Development Environment. Okay, so I will show you both approaches, and you can kind of come to your own conclusion because everybody can have a different preference. But I do want to kind of go through this part here. In class, like right now, I will be using Linux. Okay, I'm using Debian Linux at this point. You will also find that a lot of universities would also use Linux as the de facto standard operating system. Okay. The tools that we'll be using here will be C and C++ programming tools. It does not require an IDE or integrated development environment. So I'll kind of start it up so you can see what it looks like. So I could go to development and go to code blocks, and this is what it looks like. Do not annoy me again. I like that. All right, so this is what code blocks looks like, and you can go to File, you can go to New Project, and so on. Okay, it's a completely GUI graphical user interface program where you can just click some more to get a project started. But once you get a project started, you still have to type your program. You will still have to know how to program in C, C++. You have to go through the whole process of compiling and running and debugging a program anyway. It just makes it, more GUI-like. Okay, I'm not even going to call it more easy because it all depends on how well you can navigate through this. I mean, to me, just understanding all of these icons and understanding what is under each menu item is a lot of stuff to go through. Okay, so this is one way to do your program. This is the other way. Okay, this is the command line way to do everything in Linux. Okay, it starts off with a command line like this. This is called a prompt. Okay, it's basically the system asking you, what do you want to do next? Okay, and you have to use commands to create a new folder. mkdir creates a new folder, make a directory. Okay, so I'm just going to make a directory called test. It's already here. Okay, fine. cisp360 early test. Okay. And I'm going to use cd change directory to get into that directory, because you can only be in one directory at any particular time. So I'm going to change into that directory. And then next, I will create my file. I'll create a C++ program. Okay? So I use Vim myself, but you can use another editor. One is called Nano. Nano is easier to learn, but it has fewer features compared to Vim. So it's entirely up to you to decide which one you want to use. I will show you Nano first. Okay? So nano hello.cpp. Okay? This is an editor. Okay? When you look at the bottom of the screen here, the little up arrow thing, the caret symbol, means control. Okay, so this means if you want to get online help, you type Control G, and it gives you the online help. And to get out of the online help, you can see Control X will get you out of the online help. Okay, and for the most part, you just type and then use your cursor keys to navigate in Nano. So in this case, I can say #include. It has syntax highlighting, which is great. You don't have to copy anything because it's all getting recorded. So this is how you can write a program using a plain text editor like this. Just say world \n. All of these will be explained. I'm just kind of showing you the process more than the syntax at this point. All right, so the program is all done, and I want to save the file and then get out of the editor. I don't use Nano myself, so to know how to get out of the editor, I actually have to read the help at the bottom of the screen. It's Control O for write out, so I type Control O on my keyboard and press the Enter key to confirm this is the file name I want to save to. Oh, write out doesn't get out of the editor, so to get out is Control X, exit. Here we go. So we are now back to the CLI, the command line interface, and the system is asking me, okay, what else do you want to do? Okay. Well, one thing I can do is ls, which is list. It shows me what file is in this particular folder. It has one single file. At this point, it is the same file that I was, writing a little bit earlier. And then I use GCC or G++ to compile the program. So I say gcc-c, which means I want to create an object file instead of the executable from hello.cpp. Since I don't have any syntax error, it comes back without any error messages. When I do an ls, it shows two files instead of one. The .o file is what we call an object file. I'll explain these later. I'm just trying to show you the process at this point. So I know this process is good. Okay, I got the program compiled. Now I want to link it so I can run the program. So G++-O to specify the output. I'll just call this program hello, and the linking is going to use the .o file for linking purposes. Okay, now we have three files. Okay, the file with just hello, the first file, that's an executable. I can actually run the program. To run the program, you have to say // to mean run hello from the current folder, and that's all it does. Okay, it ran the program, it prints hello world, and it's done. Okay, so this is what I would prefer as a first class teaching programming, is to use the command line interface. Okay, I know it is a little bit more involved than using a GUI, but it shows you the process. Okay, when it's time to debug the program, I'll show you how to use GDB as well. GDB looks kind of like this. You can set up breakpoints, and everything is through commands. You have to type the commands and tell GDB what to do. Okay, so there's no right-clicking, selecting from a menu of items and saying, oh, this is what I want to do. You actually have to know the commands. For the first week or two, it might be the learning curve is kind of steep, but once you get past the first week or two, it's going to be easy. Okay? So this is what I prefer to do, at least myself. But for people who prefer to use, something like this, that's fine with me too. So I'm not going to say, using the command line is the only way to do your homework assignment here. You can do it with code blocks in Windows. That's fine with me. The bottom line is, can you turn in your homework assignment, your submission, the way I want it? You can do it in Windows. Okay, it's not a problem. You just have to know how to get it done in Windows. Are there any questions about the tool part of this class? Yep.
You write code out using like Nano or some other editor. Just copy that to a Word doc and submit it that way.
No, I'll give you specific instructions of how to turn in your homework assignment. Typically, what I want you to do is to compress, to zip, archive an entire folder and then turn in the entire folder. And there will be some requirements because the way I grade homework assignments for a class like this is going to be an automated tool. So you will have to turn in your homework assignment in a way that my script can handle. Yep.
So we're not using Libre at all in this class?
Sorry?
We're not using Libre Office?
We are not using LibreOffice at all in this class. We are not going to trace the code in this class. We actually have to compile and run the programs. And in this class, we're not going to use pseudocode. We'll use actual C++ code. All right, so getting back to my notes here. And this is just a whole bunch of explanation of why I prefer to use simpler tools for a class like this. Okay, if you think of the most basic tool is a manual drill, an ID is like a fancy battery power drill with torque control, selectable hammer action, selectable gear, variable speed, laser alignment, bubble level, and a Bluetooth interface. On a drill. So your drill can tell your cell phone, I need to be charged again. Don't laugh. One of these days, like in 6 months, okay, I would not be surprised that in 6 months, power tools from like DeWalt or some other manufacturer will have a Bluetooth interface. So each tool has a little screen on your phone, and it can tell you, my charge level is down to 25%. It's time to get recharged. Okay, why not, right?
Like smoke detectors.
Huh?
If you got a thing sent to your phone saying you need to replace the batteries in your smoke detector.
Yep.
It's useful.
Yep. Yeah, they already have Bluetooth, not Bluetooth, but they have digital interface to torque wrenches already. Yep. So the reason, okay, this is the point, okay? That kind of a drill can be distracting when all we want to do is to learn the basics of drilling with different types of bits into different types of material. Okay, so I don't want the tool itself to become a distraction to what we really want to do. So, but I will make this an option in this class. People who want to use an IDE, go ahead and use an IDE. It's not a problem. But in class, I'll be using the non-IDE method of writing programs. Okay. Now, if you want to use an IDE, there are two choices, but there's really only one. Dev C++ used to be the standard IDE, but it has stopped already. Okay, development has stopped for Dev C++, so I personally would not use it if I were to choose one IDE to use. CodeBlocks is actively under development, and it works in Linux, it works in Windows, it works in Mac OS X. So it doesn't matter which operating system you use here or at home or on your laptop computer, you can still download and install CodeBlocks for it. Okay, so if you want to use an IDE, that's really a good tool to use. This part is something that I have just demonstrated. If you want to use the command line tool or tool chain, you will need to use an editor. The one that I just used is called Nano. We also have Vim or Notepad++ if you want to use Notepad++. The compiler is GCC or G++. I will explain all of these concepts later. Okay, what a compiler is and why we need it. A debugger is GDB. It's called GNU Debugger, and a debugger is a weird little program that can save you a lot of time down the road. So what it means? Yep, go ahead.
If you use Notepad++, you don't have to use it in the command line prompt, right? So Notepad++ and then just
Well, Notepad++ is an editor, so you can edit the program, but when it's time to compile and run the program, you still need to drop down to the command line to do it. Yeah, if you want to avoid the command line altogether, code blocks is the way to go. How homework is graded, okay? Because that's kind of important too. The objective of this class is to learn how to write actual programs in C++. For those of you who took cisp360 as a prerequisite for this class, I'm hoping that in that class they use pseudocode. Is that right? Okay. So in this class, we don't use pseudocode, we use actual C++. So learning the syntax of C++ is a part of the objective of this class. Your homework will be graded based on whether whether programs are implemented correctly and worked correctly according to the instructions of the homework assignment. In other words, I will tell you what a program is supposed to do, and you are going to write a program in C++. So the way it is going to be graded is, the first thing I will do is I'm going to eyeball the program first. Okay? In other words, I will pop it up into an editor, and I'll just kind of manually go through the code. Not really go through the details, but I'll kind of glance through the program first. But your program will be graded automatically to check for functionality. Your homework submission will be partly graded by an automated system and partly graded manually by going over the submitted code. The automated part means I'm going to give test cases to your program, and your program has to respond correctly to each test case. Okay? Now, how it should respond to each test case is a part of the instruction. So you should know what your program is supposed to do for each of the test cases, but I won't give you the actual test cases before I grade the homework assignment. So as a part of the homework assignment, which is kind of like a hidden part of it, is you have to figure out test cases for your own programs. Okay? By reading the description of the homework assignment, you kind of have to think, okay, so how am I going to test this program to make sure that it meets all the requirements? Okay. So this means it is important that your submission can be compiled and run in the grading environment. I'm going to use Linux to grade your homework assignment, but C++ is C++. It doesn't really matter whether I'm using Linux or Windows or Mac OS X to grade it. C++ should still work, okay, regardless of the operating system. Just as importantly, your submission must meet all the specific requirements so that the robot, the grading robot, can do the automated grading. Any submission that deviates from the specified requirements may not be graded. Okay, I may ask you to turn it in again so that it meets the requirements before I can grade it. Are there any questions about this part? Questions? How many people are now thinking, I'm going to stick with an IDE? It's okay, you don't have to answer, you don't have to raise your hand. Personally, I think an IDE is far more distracting than the other way. But that's just me. All right, so this is, we're 5 minutes away from getting over with this class, but I do want to kind of explain this part here. How is a program written and how does it run? Okay, so I'm going to explain things from the bottom up. In other words, I'm kind of drilling into what is inside this box here, and then slowly, move my way up to actual programs. Okay. Modern digital computers consist of components that are mostly made from transistors. Okay. Any questions about this part? Does anyone know what a transistor is? Yep.
It's like it's like logic, right? Where you can either it goes from 1 to 2.
I would look at it, each transistor is more like a valve.
Yeah, like
Okay.
a valve. So you
Yeah.
can either go this way or that way. But there are different types of transistors.
You have an input signal to control the output.
So you can have like a zillion of these ways to have a different type of current.
Yep. So you have a signal that is applied to the transistor, and for the most part, we just want to turn it on or turn it off. So a transistor has 2 states and an input. So the input can say, okay, this transistor I want you to turn on, or this transistor I want you to turn off. And it's a device to control basically electrical current. And so on, if it's off, it shuts off the current. If it's on, it allows current to transfer from one place to another place. A transistor is not inherently on-off. It can be partially on and partially off. It can be like 50% on. But for the most part, in digital computers, we only look at on-off states. Okay, something can be on or can be off completely. This also means at the very lowest level, this is the important part. Okay, the other parts are kind of okay. It kind of leads to this point here. This means at the lowest level, modern digital computers are binary. Okay, binary means bi means two. Binary means it's base 2 or having 2 states, because everything inside the computer is either on or off. Okay, that's one way to look at it. The transistors are very primitive devices. They are usually arranged to larger units called gates. Okay, a gate can implement a particular Boolean operation. Boolean, derived from bool, the last name of the mathematician who came up with this branch of mathematics, means only dealing with the values of true, false. And gates can implement common logic operators like and or not. Okay? How many people are familiar with these concepts? Logical and, conjunction, logical or, disjunction, logical negation, not. Okay? Very good. Because this is what cisp360 should have covered. Okay, is the understanding of the basic logic gates like these ones. Okay, might have a little bit more time to go over a part of the processor. There are many other necessary components in a computer, but the computer processor is the focal point. In other words, it connects everything. And that's why in the good old days, it used to be called the CPU, or the Central Processing Unit. We only call these processors today because it is only one of the many processors in a modern computer. In a box like this, the main processor, the quote-unquote CPU, will do some of the processing. But there are other processors to deal with videos, audio, how to deal with the hard drive, and so on. So we can no longer call this, really the central processing unit, because on some computers, I'm pretty sure someone in class has a computer like that, your graphics card packs more processing power than the main processor, the Intel processor. Okay, how many people have a computer that requires 1 kilowatt of power? No one? No gaming computer, no gaming desktop computers in this class?
850.
Sorry?
850.
850s, but you need a 1 kilowatt power supply for that. Yep. And I'll just finish this paragraph and then we'll come back on Wednesday to finish this off. A processor consists of millions of transistors organized into gates, latches, multiplexers, and other types of constructs. From the programming perspective, the processor is the one thing that executes instructions as specified by a programmer/developer. And as such, it has significance over all other components in this discussion. Okay? I'm going to stop here, but you guys should read kind of through this part here. It's really hard to ask questions about this, so I'm not going to be, this will not be a part of the test, but it is kind of important to know what you're dealing with. What is a computer, what is a program, and how do you write a program? How do you tell a computer to do what you think it should do? Okay? So we'll be back to this topic on Wednesday, and I might give you a very simple programming assignment just to make sure that you have an environment to work on your homework assignment on Wednesday. Okay?
Do you need the chairs back? Do you need the chairs back?
No, I think the next class may have the same situation, so